Proverbs chapter 20. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is a brawler, and whoever is led astray by it is not wise. And so, again, you start drinking, you start saying things that you normally wouldn't have said if you were sober, and thus you end up in a fight, somebody punching you, even though it's the alcohol speaking. All they do is hear your mouth, and then before you know it, you're in a fight. And somebody who ends up waking up in the morning, that can't remember quite what happened, but they got a black eye and a couple of missing teeth. They were foolish to have got themselves in that situation. The best way to not get yourself in that situation is don't ever drink. It's that simple. I mean, look at the choices. Now you don't just have Coke, but you have Diet Coke and Cherry Coke, and now you can get Coke with a lemon twist, and there's all kinds of stuff to drink. You really don't need alcohol. And again, if they're wanting the drug effect of it, well, again, that speaks where they're at spiritually and where their heart is with the things of God. And so the world's going to act like the world, but let's not have Christians act like the world. And so it's not wise to go down that road. In verse 2, the wrath of a king is like the roaring of a lion. Whoever provokes him to anger sins against his own soul or his own life. Talked about that in very similar passages before, where you need to respect those in authority. And even though you may have a friend who's in a place of authority, well, when he's in that position of authority, you need to respect that position of authority. And if not, you're going against your own life. It is honorable for a man to stop striving, since any fool can start a quarrel. And so just to stop the striving, stop the direction of anger and contention and arguing, it's honorable for a man to stop it. Typically the best way to stop it is the three hardest words. I was wrong. It's hard to say, isn't it? I was wrong. Wrong. Or you were right. And just stop it. Don't let it keep going in a direction. Any fool can start a quarrel. Any fool can get in the midst of a fight, but it's a very difficult thing to stop one, to humble yourself. The lazy man will not plow because of winter. He will beg during harvest and have nothing. So the lazy man always has an excuse in hand. And once you start giving excuses, you will soon be good for nothing else. And I know I don't let my kids give me excuses. I don't want to hear them. But there's a lot of excuses. It's hard. It's cold. I'm tired. I'm sick. All those excuses. But the reality is, you go to work. And you do it anyway. And that's the way things are. You tough it out. You power it out. And at the end of the day, you're glad you did. In verse 5, counsel in the heart is like a deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. And there's a similar verse, chapter 18, verse 4, the words of a man's mouth are deep waters, and the wellspring of wisdom is a flowing brook. And so here, to get to the root of the issue, or to get to the heart of the issue, it's a deep thing. But a person with understanding can start getting that bucket deep enough to draw it out of what is the real issue. And typically, it ends up being bitterness or something else. And so again, the man of understanding knows how to ask the questions, how to keep asking the questions, and to point scriptures and have them read the scriptures and say what the scriptures mean, and eventually get them to that place from their own heart, from their own place, to say, got it. I see it now. If you tell them, chances are they won't get it. But if they discover it themselves, then they're going to get it. And so the man of wisdom, the man of understanding will help them come to the conclusion, help them see it, and get it for themselves. And that's what a good counselor is. Verse 6, most men will proclaim each his own goodness, but who can find a faithful man? Boy, how true that is. People will always declare how they'll be there and see it through and help you out and all of that, but the bottom line is, when the day comes, when the time is there, when the opportunity is at hand, all of a sudden everybody's gone, or a large percentage of them. But to find somebody who is faithful to start and follow through, to not just talk big, but to be big on that time, those people are few to find who can really see it through and really truly help you. This is so important. Paul narrowed it down into this. In 1 Corinthians 4:2, he says, moreover, it's required of a steward that one be found faithful. That as a minister, and all of us are ministers, what is God looking for more than anything? Knowledge, understanding, great sacrifice? No, faithfulness. The greatest thing that you can do is just be faithful. You're here tonight, you're faithful. But tomorrow morning, get on your knees, open the Word, and be faithful to spend time with Jesus. To be faithful day in and day out. And let me tell you something. One day turns into another day, turns into another day, and before you know it, decades have passed. And those years of faithfulness, whether it's in your workplace, with your family, in your marriage, serving at a church situation, let me tell you, that years of faithfulness truly do have great, great dividends, as well as building great, great character into you. Anybody can do something for a year or two, but sticking it out decade after decade speaks of a great character. So every man will proclaim his own goodness, but a faithful man, that's a hard thing to find. And I hope we are that faithful person unto the Lord, unto our family, unto the believers. In verse 7, a righteous man walks in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. The word integrity is actually, which means a whole. Like in math, you have fractions and you have whole numbers, right? But what's a whole number called? Anybody remember? An integer. An integer is a whole number. And so the righteous man, he walks in a whole way, not a shady way, not a fraction of a way. But what you see at church is what you would see at home, it's what you would see at work, what you would see wherever he's at and whatever sporting events he's at. What you see is what the person truly is. And that's what you want to be. A person who genuinely is a righteous person in secret, as well as in public, with non-Christians, with Christians, all the time. And such a man of integrity, he is blessing his children after him. I remember when I was a little kid, we loved to play marbles. For you young people, those are little round things made of glass in our day, for they had not yet made plastic. And yeah, I know. It's getting deep in here, getting deep. Better get some shovels. Anyway, and we used to play in dirt. They did have that at that time. And we used to draw circles, and then we would put our marbles and then try to knock the marbles. Anyway, I forgot my marbles. And some say I've never found them. And anyway, I remember being at school, and I said, I asked somebody, could you loan me a couple of marbles? I'll pay you back tomorrow. And this one guy said, no, these are my marbles. I can't loan them. And another guy overheard, and he said, you know what? You're Bryan Newberry. Your dad owns a gas station in town, doesn't he? I said, yeah, he does. He goes, my dad said your dad is the most honest guy in town. And if my dad thinks that about your dad, here's some marbles. I know you'll give them back to me. And I remember being so proud of thinking, yeah, We Newberries, we're honest people. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I made so sure he got his marbles back that next day. I didn't want to taint my dad's good name at that time. And so that life of integrity, that life of righteousness, it's a wonderful heritage to pass on to your children. In verse 8, a king who sits on the throne of judgment scatters all evil with his eyes. Who can say, I have made my heart clean? I am pure from my sin. Who could say such a thing? Nobody can, because the Bible says that our righteousness is as filthy rags before God, and if you have one sin against your account, there is no way to make it right. Who can take away one sin? For you've sinned against God. You can't go back in time into the time machine and erase it. Who can say that? Nobody can. And this is again why in 2 Corinthians 5:21 it says, He made him who knew no sin to be sin, that we might become the righteousness of Christ. Jesus Christ is the only one that can make our heart clean. He's the only one who can say, now you have no sin imputed to you or declared to you. And if anyone does say that, that's really a sign of wickedness. In 1 John chapter 1, verse 8 and verse 10, it says, if we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. In verse 10 it says, if we say that we have not sinned, we make him a liar, God out to be a liar, and his word is not in us. And the reality is that I am without sin tonight because God has declared it so. He has said, I am giving you by faith my righteousness. And therefore, if I were to die right now, even though I stumble and fall every single day, yet if I were to stand before God right now, I would be righteous even as Jesus is righteous. Not because of my works, not because of my worthiness, but because He has declared it so by His grace. And we go on to see there in verse 10, diverse weights and diverse measures, they are both alike, an abomination to the Lord, a proverb we have read before. Even a child is known by his deeds, whether what he does is pure and right. And so the deeds of a person's life shows what's in that person's heart. Now a child is so funny because they can't hide it. That's the only difference. I know we used to play, we grew up as a kid playing hide the belt. We did a lot of strange things. Don't psychoanalyze me, please. But anyway, it's wet, you can't go outside, it's raining, anyway. And so we would go into the one room, we would hide it, and then we would try to find it. So when my kids were small, that's something we would play. And it was cheap. And guys, we can go bowling, we can go to the movies, we go to the beach, or play hide the belt. Okay, hide the belt. And anyway, when the kids were small, of course, it was always funny because all the other older kids would have fun with it because they would go in and hide the belt. And then when they would say, okay, come and find it, if they hit it in the piano bench, they would run over and lay on the piano bench. And then they would wait about 1 second, and then they'd open the piano bench and grab it and run off with it. So it was always funny because we always loved to see the little guys do it because it was just always so funny. Because all we'd have to do is walk into the room, and they would go get it themselves. Because they can't deceive. They can't have that heart to lie. And it's always funny to see that. I remember Renee when she was about 3 years old. And she had chocolate all over her face, all over her hands, all over her clothes. And I said, did you get into the chocolate? No. And there she is, They try, but they can't do it. They can't do it. And so again, unfortunately, what we learn in time is how to be successful liars. How to be successful deceivers. But yet our deeds, and we know truly our deeds, in secret as well as in the open, and God knows all things, they really do speak of what kind of person we are. So you could sit quietly and sit by yourself and ask yourself, what are my words? What are my deeds? And that is truly who you are. One person said, if you were simply to take all the things you've done in secret this last week and put them in order, that is truly who you are. When nobody else is around, nobody else sees, nobody else knows on this earth, that's truly the person you are. What are you doing in secret? Are you a person who's seeking the Lord? Are you a person who's being crooked and perverted? So even a child is known by his deeds, and so is every one of us are known by our deeds. In verse 12, the hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord has made them both. So God has made us for His purposes. So you just sit and you think about it. God made these things. They're gifts to us, but He made them. So what did God want to happen with my ears? What did God want to happen with my eyes? What did God want to happen with my feet? And we would be wise to do the things the Lord would have us to do with our life. Why did God make it? Did God make my hand to slap people with? Or did He make my hand that I might hold somebody and comfort them? And you start thinking about, God made 2 ears and 1 mouth because He wants us to listen twice as much as we talk. He made it that our mouth can shut, but our ears don't. Maybe there's a good reason. He wants us to keep listening, but He doesn't always want us to keep talking. And so again, we just consider why God made what He made and how He made it, and then to line up using these wonderful gifts of hearing and seeing in the way that He would have us to use them. Do not love sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes, and you will be satisfied with bread. It's true. Once you get out of bed, it's great, isn't it? Boy, getting out of bed's the tough one, isn't it? I know, just walk into the shower and get in there, and all of a sudden, boom, I come to life. But getting there sometimes can be a bit difficult. But don't love your sleep. It's only going to end up in hurt and poverty. Verse 14, it's good for nothing, cries the buyer, but when he has gone his way, then he boasts. So how people will and deal. Just making an observation. Somebody's going down to the car lot, and the guy looks at the used car, $5,000, and the guy said, he had just told his wife, all I can spend is $6,000, but he goes down and tells the guy, oh, man, I really don't have $5,000. He does. But then the guy says, I'm just going to be honest with you. That means he's lying. And I bought this thing from a little old lady who had it parked in her garage for 20 years. I mean, how many times? It's amazing how many people have cars bought by little old ladies who've been parked in their garage for 20 years. But anyway, and I got to tell you, I bought this thing for $4,500, and I got to at least make $100 on it. So give me $4,600. And they go back and forth, and finally they both boast of how they got the better of each other. And it's just, again, making an observation about human nature. We like a deal, don't we? You go out and spend $200, but I saved $2,000. Well, all I know is you spent $200 we don't have. And but boy, thanks for saving us all that money. So it's amazing how our nature is. There is gold and a multitude of rubies, but the lips of knowledge are a precious jewel. There's some real wealth to hear that word in season, the words of wisdom. Take the garment of one who is surety for a stranger, and hold it as a pledge when it is for a seductress. Bread gained by deceit is sweet to a man, but afterwards his mouth will be filled with gravel. So again, you can do what you want to try to help somebody out in a sinful way, or to try to be a deceitful person to get ahead, but ultimately your deceitful ways are going to come back on you. In the long run, it's better to build slow and honest than quick and deceitful. Eventually, you're going to wish you had never gone that deceitful direction. And speaking of that, taxes are coming up. Be honest. Give unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, even though it's Uncle Sam, not Caesar. Plans are established by counsel, but wise counsel, and by wise counsel, wage war. Again, that's such a tough thing, especially as a young person, to sit down and really discuss things through. So often, a young person will have this great idea, they're ready to jump on it and run with it. And then after the fact, they realize, boy, that was a stupid thing. And sometimes people can make decisions that hurt them for a lifetime, even though they're young, even though they seem so innocent and naive. Nevertheless, that decision hurt them for a lifetime. So slow it down and get the multitude of counsel. We see a couple different types of people that come in for premarital counseling. You see the one couple that comes in and they're so afraid that their relationship is so fragile, one challenging word is going to crumble the whole thing. And they're so defensive and so just wanting to jump through the hoops and we'll marry him. And so concerned that you're going to talk her out of it or talk him out of it. You know, I finally got him here. Don't mess with this fragile thing. And then you have the other people that come in and they just say, you know what? Go for it. If you can talk us out of it, we'll be better people for it. Just give us the best counsel we can get to get us established in the right way. And you see those people with the various hearts, you see and you can tell what kind of marriage they're going to have down the road. And without that premarital counseling, I find that a large percentage of people end up in divorce. And usually over things that are the ABCs of marriage, in which we cover in the first, we're talking 7 hours of premarital counseling we do, and we give a book that people go through on their own. It's not that huge, but it is huge in the impact. Simple little things to think through that you've never thought about before. Certain principles in God's Word that you may have overlooked because you've never been in this situation before. And as we point them out and go over them, all of a sudden the lights come on and they're able to take that first step in marriage on a solid, positive note, rather than being married for a year and having to take 10 steps backwards to take one baby step forward, and to have all this garbage now that they're going to be bringing up for the next 20 years. It's a hard thing. Marriage can be a wonderful, wonderful place, or it can be a very, very horrible place, depending whether you're on the right page. And, of course, there's many other things as well. I've seen people wanting to jump into business agreements, wanting to jump into buying things. And if they just slow it down and get counsel, they would be a whole lot safer and a whole lot better off. And again, a man who goes to war without counting the cost is a foolish person. Jesus even talks on this, saying that you should first see whether you can win the war. And then if you can win the war, then go to war. If not, make a treaty before you ever get to that place to lose the battle. And I don't think Osama bin Laden did this. I don't think it's in the Quran. In verse 19, he who goes about as a talebearer reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with one who flatters with his lips. So again, there's a person who always wants to get the skivvy on everybody and everything and the latest. And he says, stay away from those people for a couple of reasons. One is you don't want to know the skivvy on everybody. It's impure, and it's information in your head that's not good. You know what? Do you know so-and-so said this or did this? You know what? I love those people, and I really don't want to know the dirt on them. We all have dirt, and I don't want to know it. I've heard enough dirt for my lifetime. People will say, let me tell you about it. You know, I really don't want to know about it. But man, it might be good for you to know. You know, I've already heard it. Already know it. I could tell you. Because human nature, we just seem to fall in the same pit over and over again. I already know. I don't need to know any details. I could already tell you. The reality is that that person who is willing to tell you about others is just as easy to tell others about you. Don't let them come into your circle. Don't let them come into your confidence, because such a person is bad news. Stay away from them for the protection of your mind and also the protection of your own self, because they're going to be saying things about others. And typically, they rarely have their facts straight, because the facts don't make a good story. But the implications of the facts make a great story. Whoever curses his father or his mother, his lamp will be put out in the deep darkness. We've talked about that. Inheritance gained hastily at the beginning will not be blessed at the end. And we think of the prodigal son who wanted his inheritance early. If he had read this story, he wouldn't have ended up in the situation. Again, the person who has too much too quick can't appreciate what he has. He doesn't understand the value of $1. But you who have struggled, and you know the value of $1, and now here you are later on in life blessed. You know how blessed you really are. And you'd also know how to take care of the money that now you have, because you've learned how far $1 can be stretched, and you're still stretching $1, even though you don't need to. You're still doing it, and that's a wise thing. In verse 22, do not say, I will recompense evil. Wait for the Lord, and He will save you. Paul talks about this in a little more detail in Romans chapter 12. Turn there if you would. As you hold your finger in Proverbs, we're coming right back. We've got 2 more chapters to go. I don't think we're going to make it, but hey, Romans chapter 12. Paul says this in verse 17. Repay no one evil for evil. Have regard for good things in the sight of all men. You know what? Look at the good things. Don't look at the evil things. Look at it from their perspective. Don't just look at it from your perspective. Give them an out. Don't get bitter towards them. If it is possible, as much as it depends on you, live peaceably with all men. As much as possible. Now, it doesn't always depend upon you, but go as far as you can go with it to try to bring peace amongst your brother. Beloved, do not avenge yourself, but rather give place to the wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Therefore, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him to drink. And for in so doing, you will heap coals of fire on his head. Do not be overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. I know if one of my kids says, oh, so-and-so hit me, their brother or sister hit them, I'll call them in, and I'll say, did you hit them? And they find out, yes, they hit them, then I will spank them for it. But if they said, well, I only hit him because he first hit me, then I'll say, both of you go sit in your beds for a while. I don't need to spank them. They spanked each other. In the same way, the Bible says, get out of God's way. God will deal with your enemies. God will deal with those people that are trying to hurt you. But if you're dealing with them, then He won't. He'll sit on the sidelines until you're done. And I'll guarantee you that God can do your enemies in better than you can do your enemies. God can repay evil upon those who have been evil to you far more than you could ever do it. Get out of God's way and let Him be God, and you quit trying. The reality is God knows the whole realm. He knows the motive of their heart. So often we attribute evil that somebody has done to us, but in their heart there was no evil whatsoever. It was simply ignorance. It was simply an oversight. It was simply they weren't mature enough to see how that would affect you. It wasn't in any way some intentional thing to hurt you, although it did hurt you. And God knows that, and He can judge that far better than you can. But yet in your mind, oh, they were evil, and they were horrible, and they were trying to, mess me up. And In reality, none of that was in their heart. But who knows? Who knows that but God? Who can judge that but God? And that's why you shouldn't judge at all. Because there's the whole issue of a man's heart that you can't even begin to know about. You don't even know what's in your own heart. And therefore, step aside and let God deal with the issue. And again in verse 33, diverse weights are an abomination to the Lord, and dishonest scales are not good. In verse 24, a man's steps are the Lord's. A man's steps are of the Lord, and how then can a man understand his own way? And so, again, it's fun to see why we like certain things at certain times, or like to do certain things at certain times, or don't like to do certain things at certain times. God knows. And it's all a part of His plan. It's all a part of His way. I don't know why. This last December, I said to my family, let's go bowling. I've never thought much of bowling. Matter of fact, I don't think I had bowled since I was 17, before that. But we went and really enjoyed it. And now I love bowling. I thought, you know, Fridays are my day off. I'd love to get on a bowling league. Now, I have no idea why I want to do this. And I asked, and they said, no, you know, you have to be at least 55 to get on the morning leagues. Almost there, not quite. And I told the lady, I said, you know, I just really sense that there's something open. I don't know what. She goes, no, I'm sure of it. And she checked around, and sure enough, she gave me a call back saying, you know, there is a league. And it's half the price. You don't have to pay if you don't show up, because sometimes I don't. And it's been so neat just talking to these people. It's hard getting beat by 86-year-old women. It's humbling. I was bowling. I was pretty proud of myself, and this gal next to me, she had bowled a lot better than I did. And she goes, don't let it bother you. You know, I didn't start bowling until I was 46. And but I have been bowling for 40 years. I'm going, you're kidding. I had no idea she was that old. But these guys that have been bowling for years are good, man. So my whole world is open to bowling. I have no idea why I am into bowling. But I really am into bowling right now. And I just figured that I can't understand this, but I know God is in it. And God's going to use this to His glory. And also, if I kept playing basketball, I was going to hurt myself. I think the Lord knew that too. White men can't jump. Middle-aged white men can't get off the ground. I couldn't jump to begin with, but now I really can't jump. But anyway, I can bowl. Woo-hoo! I can keep bowling. So anyway, I don't know why I'm talking. Verse 25, let's move on here. It is a snare for a man to devote rashly something as holy, and afterwards to reconsider his vows. Boy, people have gotten themselves into trouble in that way, saying, oh, this is good, this is great, and then find out later, oh, that's not great at all. I've talked to people from time to time that said, you know, I see it with new Christians. Satan is so shrewd, where somebody will come Sunday morning, receive the Lord, and then they'll turn around the next week saying, oh, these Christians showed up to my door, and they're going to come every week now and give me a Bible study. Were they Jehovah's Witnesses? Yeah, you've heard of them. They're a cult. They're trying to proselyte you unto themselves. It's a different Jesus. Be careful. Again, in our immaturity, sometimes we're ready to call something holy, and in reality, it's not holy at all. It's of the devil. And this is also why it says in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 22, do not lay hands on any man hastily, nor share in other people's sins. Keep yourself pure. Give it time. Be careful. And to saying, this is great, this is of God, this isn't of God. You should be slow to making a statement saying, now this is a great ministry of the Lord. This is a great thing of God. Be careful. Give it time. Wait and see the fruit of it to see if it's a good fruit, giving the truth about the Lord. There's a lot of things that spring up quickly, and then they go away quickly, and they sort of leave people in the dust afterwards. They start with a big pomp, and they end with a big pomp. And unfortunately, people get devastated in the meantime. And in verse 26, a wise king sifts out the wicked and brings the threshing wheel over them. The spirit of a man is the lamp of the Lord, searching all the inner depths of his heart. So God made us not just body, not just soul, but also spirit. And there's some times that our spirit senses things, and we don't really know what it is. We can't put it in human words. There's times I just sort of feel mellow right now. I just feel sort of like I just like to get away and just be by myself for a little bit and just spend some time with an open Bible. Why? What's going on? I don't know. I just sense something, and sometimes our spirit can sense it. Sometimes a grieving, sometimes a solitude, sometimes a zeal. And our mind, we don't know why. But later on, we discover why. I know almost on every occasion our church has seen difficult times. In the weeks and the months beforehand, I sense it in my spirit. And I can sense something getting ready to happen, and I'm just radically in my heart crying out to God. And I don't know what it is. And then when it comes about, I'm going, yeah, that's exactly what God's been showing me in the Word. That's exactly, as I've been spending time with the Lord, what He's been impressing upon my heart. And now I have the answer in season because I was before the Lord and letting His Spirit speak to my spirit. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, make a note of it and look it up later. In verse 10 and 11, it says, but God has revealed them to us through His Spirit. For the Spirit searches all things, yes, the deep things of God. For what man knows the things of a man except the spirit of the man which is in him? Even so, no one knows the things of God except the Spirit of God. So God's Spirit knows the deep things of God, and your spirit knows the deep things of you, and God's Spirit lives in you, so He can share with your spirit the deep things of God. He goes on to say in 1 Corinthians 2, human mind and human words can't explain it, but God can speak to your spirit those things that have freely been given unto you. Mercy and truth preserve the king, and by loving kindness He upholds His throne. Remember back in chapter 3, turn there if you would, to verse 3 and 4 of Proverbs. Let not mercy and truth forsake you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablets of your heart, and so find favor and high esteem in the sight of God and man. What is it? Mercy and truth, bound tightly around you, written upon your heart. You'll find favor in the sight of God and man. And we happen to also discover in Luke chapter 2, verse 52, a description of Jesus. It says, Jesus as a young boy increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and men. Jesus was one who bound mercy and truth about Him and found favor in the eyes of God and man. And here we discover now in Proverbs 20 that mercy and truth, that is what preserves the king. And by that loving kindness of our king, it upholds His throne. And I love that because we have that description in Hebrews chapter 4. The Bible says, come boldly before His throne of grace and receive mercy and grace to help you in your time of need. God's throne is upheld by truth, but also by mercy. And so your position of authority, whatever that position of authority may be, will also be sustained by mercy and truth. And if you go back and look at the kings of the Old Testament, when they were taken off the throne, it's because they were devoid of one of two things, truth or mercy. And if they had mercy and truth both bound about them, then their lineage continued on. But God will take people out of a place of authority who are not enthroned as He is with mercy and truth. Well, verse 29, the glory of a young man is their strength, and the splendor of an old man is their gray head. Our saying is, act your age. There's nothing worse than to see some old guy try to act like a young guy and blow his back out. I've had so many of my friends, see their kids skateboard there and just say, I'm going to, just skateboard a little ways and go get the mail. Oh, every year I'll go to the pastor's conference. There's some guy in a cast, and I'll say, what was it? Skateboard? And half of the time it's, yep, it was. Man, I learned years ago, even though I'm not an old man, years ago, that, your bones aren't what your bones used to be. And when you got the young guys, you say, come on over here, young man. Pick that up. I'll help you. And you don't really help them. You let them carry it. But you look like you're helping them. The glory of a young man's his strength. But the guy who has gray hair, it's just his splendor of being old and wise. His experience and wisdom is enough. That is what makes him great. He doesn't have to be strong like he once was. Typically, somebody who's gray has earned his gray hairs. And it's because of the years of experience and hard knocks that he has some wisdom to share. Might not have a strong back to share, but he'll have some wisdom to share. In verse 30, blows that hurt cleanse evil. Blows that hurt cleanse away evil, as do stripes the inner depths of a heart. Turn to Hebrews chapter 12 with me, if you would. Hebrews chapter 12. Starting there in verse 5. And have you forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as to sons? My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you are rebuked by him. For whom the Lord loves, he chastens, and scourges every son whom he receives. If you endure chastening, God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom a father does not chasten? I know I've spanked all my kids. But if you are without chastening, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate and not sons. Furthermore, we have had human fathers who corrected us, and we paid them respect. Shall we not much more readily be in subjection to the Father of spirits and live? For they indeed for a few days chastened us as seemed best to them. But he, for our profit, that we may be partakers of his holiness. Now listen to verse 11. Now no chastening seems to be joyful for the present, but painful. Nevertheless, afterwards it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. So as we've studied through the Proverbs, it says that the parent that doesn't discipline his kid hates his kid. And so again here it says, those blows that hurt are painful for the temporary. They do indeed cleanse away the evil. They wise us up. You say basically to your kids, you did this, you said this was your attitude, and pain came because of it. Now, get it. When you're away from me, I've told you in the way you should go. I've told you the things you should say, the attitudes you should have. Now, when you're out of my reach, out of my sight, also know that pain will come. So I'm causing you a temporary pain now that you might grab a character. So when you're no longer in my presence, that character will cause you to say and to do and to be that right person. So you're spared from pain. I tell my kids life is better than you could ever imagine it. Or life can be worse than you ever can imagine it. And if you walk in that narrow road that leads to life, I'll tell you what, it just gets better and better and better and better. If you walk off that narrow road that leads to life, it says it's a broad road, but it brings destruction. And it gets bitterer and bitterer and bitterer and bitterer. You go from hardship to hardship, from calamity to calamity, to sorrow to sorrow. It just never seems to cease. God wants us to be blessed children. And therefore, He disciplines us in the way we should go. And I'm very thankful for His blows upon my head and my back and my behind through the years. And I know He loves me, and I know it's leading me in the way I should go, and all of us should rejoice in that. Well, we didn't make it to chapter 22. I have no idea why. I'll have to go back and read my pastor's manual and figure out why. I think I know. I just know it has nothing to do with me. I don't know why. Too many good things to talk about, huh?